Wow, what a chaotic...
More about the upcoming election.
Joe Biden, President Donald Trump.
I actually work at a news channel called I-24 News in Tel Aviv, Israel. As a general feel at the channel, I'm feeling a lot of tension. I am about to go check out the studio and see who's in there. Why, hello, Caleb.
Hi, India.
How are you?
I'm excited.
Fantastic election day. We're still waiting on the results, correct?
100%. This race is still on, not over, may not even be over this evening.
So what's one thing? You've experienced tons of Israeli elections. What is the difference between the Israeli elections and the American elections? Which ones are more exciting?
Well, I'm going to tell you something funny, India. When I first came to Israel, which was 35 years ago, I thought elections in Israel were crazy. Sometimes the polls were often wildly wrong. Sometimes it would take days before you would know the results because we have a parliamentary form of government. There was all kinds of political back and forth. Elections in America seemed very tame. They were settled that night. We knew who won. The polls were usually right. Now, in the last couple of years, the elections in the U.S. have become even crazier than the elections in Israel. And this election is shaping up to be maybe the craziest yet.
Why are people in Israel so obsessed with the American elections?
You know, India, Israel has become so close to America in recent decades. It's sometimes called the 51st state, because so much of what happens here is decided in Washington. I'm sure President Trump maybe would like it to be the 51st state, because the polls have consistently shown in this election that a majority of Israelis and a majority of Americans living in Israel have supported him throughout. But the vote in Israel does not yet count in America, but certainly what's being decided there in the U.S. in this vote is going to have huge consequences for Israel on everything from the peace process to military, to the economy, and many other issues.
This right here, my friends, is Daniel. He's an AP here at I-24 News, and he's from India. So for me, as an American, this election really has me on the edge because I know it's going to determine the next 4 years of my life. So for you, as someone who's not American, does it have that same effect on you, per se?
It's quite important being an Indian. India and US share one of the biggest defense ties, and it's quite important. And recently India has had issues with China and Pakistan, and Trump has been quite critical and he's taken notice of these issues. So for me it's quite important, the US elections.
Hi, Boker Tov. How are you? So what happens normally on election day?
First of all, you have a lot of meetings before where you decide who's going to be where. This is an American election, so a lot of our people who are in the U.S. are giving us hits from places in America, booking all the guests beforehand that are going to sit for these marathon studio sessions for like 20 hours analyzing everything.
There has been people here all night then?
Well, I haven't been here tonight, but we had running coverage all night, and usually what you do is you book for elections where a lot of the important analysts, all the channels want, and you have to book them way in advance. I mean, you know what it is in TV. You can book someone a day before, 2 days. You can, on the same day, you can book someone to come in. Elections, and you book the people in advance, way in advance. You say, okay, we're going to do 3 hours, then the next guest can do 3 hours, and that way you have rolling coverage that's going on all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, it's an operation. You plan everything in advance. You plan who your guests are, where your correspondents are going to be, and then just sit here in this room, all the computers and everything, and try to react to all the crazy news that's coming in. But for me, this one has been the most relaxed one. The American one has been the most relaxed one.
Really?
But, that's just me. So I'm more like Israel, Middle East oriented.
When do you think the results will come in officially?
Well, who knows? I don't know what's going on in every state as far as when the results are coming in. And the Democrats, I mean, they have their mail-in votes that are coming a bit later. So, you know, some of the mail-in votes are going to be counted later, and apparently more Democrats vote mail-in. So, I mean, it's crazy. It's really going to go down to the wire, like we saw in 2000.
Oh!
And then, you know, there's going to be court battles maybe. This is the worst scenario. That's the worst scenario. What's important, though, is if your candidate loses, don't go crazy, all right? Don't go like into the rain and go like, no.
Right.
Just, like, go home, watch a good movie or something. Just relax. There's other things in life. It's only politics. It's all going to be okay. No matter who's elected, it's going to be okay.
That's a word. That's a word. I take that. That's Alec Pollard from I-24 News. So what's it like working at a news channel on election day?
Oh God, bloody chaos.
horror, bloody chaos, screaming, trying to update things, getting your expectations changed at the last minute, trying to make deadline when you have no idea what's going on, and then going past deadline because some kind of strange upset happened at the last minute.
How thrilling.
The one thing you could be absolutely certain of is that the polls completely wrong. Every single poll put Biden at 8 points ahead in every single state, which frankly, at face value, should have been seen for utterly ridiculous, and in practice we're seeing that play out.
Why do you think the polls were so screwed up?
Well, there's a few reasons. One being the methodology used in the polls. They do a random sampling by phone, and the random sampling by phone generally concentrates in the cities, which means if it's a city, it's going to have an urban bias. The urban bias tends to be in favor of the Democrats. Now, that's point one. They try to extrapolate based off of that. They try to adjust the models, but you can't really adjust models proportionally when you're dealing with an election this politicized and this charged. The second one is a phenomena that's often called the shy Trump voter. The various universities and polling agencies around the country have done the research, and they found that anywhere from 10 to 12% of Trump voters are going to lie at the polls because they say they fear some sort of ramification. This makes sense. You've seen over the past few years people fired from their jobs and attacked in the street for being Trump supporters or Trump voters. If that's the case, then obviously if you don't trust who's calling you, you're not going to tell them the truth. That actually makes up almost exactly the difference we've seen between projected polls yesterday and what we're seeing in the actual vote counts. You take 10% or 12% off of the numbers that Trump was polling at, add it, and you get more or less the exact exit poll results we're seeing.
Wow.
There's a lot of different factors involved here, but one of the other big ones is that the polls were biased from the beginning. One of the big numbers we looked at is early and mail-in ballots. When we're looking at those ballots, they were requested by Democrats to Republicans at a rate of 2-1. So obviously, looking at things in advance, you're seeing a complete blowout election. Oh my God, the Democrats are winning 2-1. Well, if most Democrats are taking their ballots by mail, what's going to happen on Election Day? Who's left? Well, you get a massive red wave across the other states.
And that's the 2020 election.